many students should you be dropping on a regular basis, monthly basis? Maybe that's a better way of saying it. How many students should you be dropping every month? What is healthy? How do you know that your school is not like hemorrhaging students? And because it can feel that way, like, especially as your numbers get a little bit bigger, it's like all of a sudden all the numbers get bigger, not just your revenue, all those things, your drop numbers increase too. So how do you know that you're not out of control and that you're staying in line with normal, drop numbers? Okay, so I'm just going to jump right into this. I would say the ad industry average is like between 7 and 10%, and it's high. That's really high. If you're at 10%, you're dropping 10% of your students. So like, let's say you have 200 students and you're dropping 20 students out of those 200. That's really high. That's like a lot of churn. And so you want to limit churn in your business. And so like, you might be thinking, well, yeah, but I've got students that have been with me for years. It's like, well, that's true, but maybe you've got new students coming in that are only, with you for like 2 or 3 months and they're quitting, and you've got a bunch of those. And if you do that, that's gonna add up really fast. So the industry average is 7 to 10%. You really don't want to be anywhere. You don't want to be at 7 to 10%. Like, that's not good. It's better for you if you can be thinking about like even if you could just decrease that percentage point by 1%, like if that's a worthy goal, right? Because 1% makes a difference, right? So like take 1% of 200 students, that's 2 students. It's like, well, that doesn't seem like very many, but multiply that by a whole year, and now you've got, what would that be? Do the math there. That would be like 24 students, right? 24 students just by improving your retention by 1%. Now, if that, then multiply your tuition to that and look at your revenue numbers. 24 students, let's say you're charging, I don't know, simple math. Let's say it's $100 a month. That's really cheap. Let's say it's $200 per student per month. That is 24. That's $4,800 in revenue that you just saved by 1%, a 1% improvement on retention. So retention matters a whole lot. And the more students you get, guys, it's all about retention. It's all about retention. It's not about, it is about getting new students. Yes, of course, it's about getting new students, but man, retention is like the most overlooked aspect of our industry. And so if you can get a hold of that, then you'll be doing really well. So the goal is 5%. Try to stay at or below 5%. 5% is a really good number that keeps you healthy. It keeps you strong in your business. So if your student retention is, if you're retaining, let's just say it this way, if you're retaining 95% of your students, you're not dropping any more than 5% of your students. So take that 200 student studio. If you're only dropping 10 students a month, then that's a much healthier number, right? So that's the goal. That's what you want to shoot for. The first thing you to look at, so like if you have a high drop month, right? You don't want to compare that to last month. We want to compare that to last year, this month, right? So don't compare it to last month, compare it to last year, this month. If you have a high drop month, then what we're going to be doing is you should be looking at it as a comparison to last year. Is it higher than last year? Okay. Well, if it's higher than last year, then let's take a look at why was it higher? What were the reasons that people were dropping? What were the reasons that people were dropping? And is your staff asking people, well, what's going on? What's going on? Like the worst thing you want to have happen in your school is to have your staff just take the information and say, thanks, your last day is next week. Thanks for calling. We'll take you off the subscription list. Your card will not be billed, and then just moving on. Like that's the worst thing you can have your staff do, because then you don't know why they're leaving. You're letting them go without any pain, and your revenue drops. So at the very least, we need to know why. We need to know why they're dropping. So find out why. And the way you can find out why is you just simply ask them what's going on. How are lessons going? Like, is there something going on with the teacher? Is there something we can help you with? Like, what's going on? And usually they'll tell you. Sometimes they'll tell you the truth. But sometimes you got to dig a little bit. The more you can dig here, the more success you're going to have at saving those people, because you'll really, eventually, you'll get to the bottom of why they're really dropping. Like, what's the real reason? So find out the reason. Find out the reason. The next thing I'm going to want to know is, like, I'm going to look at the roster of teachers, my teachers, and I'm going to say, which teacher had the most drops? So if I have a high drop month and it's higher than normal and something's going on, right? Like, I'm going to dig here. So one of the layers, we're going to get through some different layers, going to find out the reasons. Are there some patterns here? But the numbers will always tell you the story. Sometimes it's just a teacher had a really bad month, or you've got a bad teacher and they're dropping a lot of students. They're getting complaints, this and that. So that the numbers will tell the story. So find out the teachers that had the most drops. Which teacher had the most drops, or which teachers had a lot of drops? And those are going to be things you're going to want to look at. The other thing you want to do is listen to the calls. Did your staff really try to save them? Did they try to save them? You got to at least try, right? That's the first step. Just try to save them. Try to solve their problem. Try to solve the issue that the customer is having, because they're obviously having an issue. Something is creating a barrier. Something is a barrier between them and your school and your business interaction with them. There's a barrier there. Can your staff remove the barrier? Can they solve the problem? They have to be problem solvers. They got to at least try, guys. They got to try. Even if they just try to save them, and that saves you 1% for the whole year. And just think about that. That's revenue, immediate revenue that goes straight to the bottom line. So I tell my staff that every student that you save is like signing up a new student. Same thing. These are the numbers that you want to be looking at as it relates to student drops. You want to stay at 5% or below monthly drop rate, right? So try to stay at 5% or below for your monthly drop rate. If you do that, then you're in a pretty small class of high performing schools. You should be able to grow your school pretty consistently at that point, and you'll do really well.